There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Vlogmas. Here I am to present an original tag that Britta Bowler and I created together. It's the Vlogmas Tag. The first thing I want to say about the Vlogmas Tag is, everybody knows what Vlogmas is. It's like a commitment where people that are doing Vlogmas publish a video a day from December 1st until maybe Christmas Eve. I'm not sure when the cutoff is, but pretty much for the entire month of December. I did it 2 years ago. I think I quit early, and I did it last year. I don't think I'm actually going to do it this year. I haven't decided, but I don't think so. And you don't have to be participating in Vlogmas to do this tag. Britta and I want you to understand that. Just because you're doing the Vlogmas tag doesn't mean you have to commit to the 25 days of Vlogmas or whatever it is, alright? You can just participate by doing our tag. So, without further ado, let's get started. Number 1, V is for Voyage, a book that involves travel. I want to talk about 2. The first is a memoir, a Japanese memoir, Horses, Horses, In the End the Light Remains Pure by Hideo Furukawa. The subtitle is A Tale That Begins with Fukushima. This is Furukawa's memoir of his life as a Japanese person and as a Japanese novelist in the aftermath of the big earthquake and tsunami that hit Japan in 2011. I was living here at that time, and this is a powerful memoir, and it involves him. He was living, I believe, in either Osaka or Tokyo at the time of the disaster, but his home prefecture is Fukushima, and he spends a lot of time there and travels back and forth there in the aftermath of the devastation. And it is a really layered memoir. This was the first book I read by Furukawa, and I then went on to try his fiction, and I didn't like it, whether it was the translation or whatever, but this memoir just blew me out of the water. That was a terrible pun. It just blew me away, the way that he brought a almost, what would you say, shamanistic, fictional approach to the true story. So I do recommend it for that, and it did involve traveling all over Japan, but especially back to his home prefecture, Fukushima. The other one is one that I'm hoping to read next year, and that is A House for Mr. Biswas by V.S. Naipaul. And I didn't know until I went to Google, because I was thinking travel books. I don't want to talk about the Olga Tokarczuk book that's about travel, because it sounds so silly. What books have I read that are about travel? And this came up in some of my Google searches, so now I know that this chunkster of a novel involves traveling all over the Trinidadian diaspora, and I didn't know that, so there's a lot of traveling throughout the world in this novel. And look at that cover. Kind of matches my blouse, hey? Number 2, L is for LGBTQ. Recommend a favorite book or author. So, I just filmed a review of a memoir just published a few weeks ago called Unicorn, the Memoir of a Muslim Drag Queen by Amru Al-Kadi. And I would recommend that very highly to you, and I will link my review in the show notes. But in terms of a writer that I've read more than one book by recently, that would be the French gay writer Edouard Louis. This is his debut novel in English translation anyway, The End of Eddie, and then the second novel to be published in English, History of Violence. I have a full review of this, which I will link. This is a really heavy one based on his autobiographical experience of having been raped. This one is one of the most powerful coming out novels that I've read, certainly in decades. So I love his stuff. Number 3, Old is for Oldie but Goldie. Now this is interesting. This was Britta's prompt, and she wrote Oldie but Goldie. And I thought, I think it's Oldie but Goodie. So I went to Google, and both are fine. I'd never heard of Oldie but Goldie. It rhymes, but I always knew it as Oldie but Goodie. So you can use whichever variation you are the most comfortable with. The meaning is the same. A book you read a long time ago that holds a special place in your heart. So I'm going to go with one of the first queer novels that tugged on my heartstrings, which I first read in the mid-1990s, and that is Michael Cunningham's novel A Home at the End of the World, which was about the decades-long friendship that began in childhood between a gay man and a straight man, and then the fag-hag friend of the gay man, and she ends up sleeping with the straight friend, and that sounds like a disaster for some kind of silly rom-com movie, and it's not. It's a really deep portrayal of gay life and sexuality and friendship that just seared its way into my heart. Don't watch the movie, especially since they cut out whatever that hot actor's name is, but there was a nude shot, and a certain part of his anatomy was too enormous. Apparently to the test audiences it was too distracting, so they cut it out. So there's absolutely nothing worth seeing in the movie adaptation, but do try the book. Oh dear. Number 4, G is for gift. Share some stories, share some anecdotes about good and bad experiences with giving and or receiving book gifts. I'll tell you one of each. So, bad experience. I had 2 grandmothers that I loved very much. Actually, I had 3, but that's a story for another video. This anecdote is about Grandma Mooney, who lived to be 101, and she was an avid reader, and I would often give her books as gifts. But a couple times I made mistakes by choosing books that were too serious about being an old person. One was a recommendation that she read from the library, and that was the novel Memento Mori by Muriel Spark, and she didn't like it at all. She was, 90 years old, and it's not a book for a 90-year-old to read, and she was quite upset by it, I think. It was a big mistake, but I didn't learn my lesson, and I can't remember which happened first, but one Christmas I gave her an anthology of writings by old women called When I Am an Old Woman, I Shall Wear Purple. I love the title. I love the cover illustration. Here it is. I never investigated the content, and I remember Christmas Day she opened it and she was delighted by the title and by the cover illustration. And then later, because both grandmas were home for Christmas, my other grandma, who was quite a bit younger than her, read the first essay or whatever it was, and I was upstairs, but I could hear them talking, and my younger grandma said to my older grandma, "This is really depressing." And it was just very, warts and all, perspectives about loneliness and desperation and grief, and it wasn't something that my 90-something-year-old grandmother. So I think she didn't read it. I think she got rid of it. We never spoke of it again, and it was just a huge mistake, and I think I finally learned my lesson. Now, the younger grandma, this is going on for a while, but this is my tag video. I can take as much time as I want. My younger grandma, Grandma Lane, she was wonderful when I was a kid, and I was this book nerdy kid, she really wanted to know what books I was reading and what I liked, and she special ordered books that she had to get from the UK, and this was like in the 1970s. That wasn't an easy thing. There was no Amazon, but she would go to the local bookstore in rural Alberta and order Enid Blyton books and Jennings books for me, and she was just wonderful at giving me the exact book that I wanted, always. So there you go. Another positive one, and this is fitting because my co-creator of this tag, Britta Bowler, has given me book gifts. The one that I treasure the absolute most, it's my most treasured book in my library, and that is the Barbara Pym cookbook by Hilary Pym, her sister, and Honor Wyatt. And this was published after Barbara Pym died in 1980. I believe it was 1980, so this was published a few years afterwards. And I already had a softcover copy, a reprint, but she sent me this, and I thought, oh dear, I already have it. And then I flipped through it. This is the first edition, so it's got the same kind of cover design happening as one particular edition of the Pym novels. Barbara Pym is my favorite writer, if you didn't know. And I open it up. And Hilary Pym, Barbara Pym's sister, has signed it. Oh my God! So, this is a very positive book gift story, I'm telling you. Thanks again, Britta. Number 5, M is for Mass-Market Paperback. Do you like them? Why or why not? show us a couple, talk about a couple you have read. I don't like mass-market paperbacks. They're too small. There's not enough margin space. You really have to crack the spine to read them, and I'm loath to do that. And the paper is usually poor quality. I really don't like mass-market paperbacks. The one that I wanted to show you the most, I actually don't know where it is. I thought it was in my library somewhere. It's Kate Atkinson's Life After Life, which I read as a mass-market paperback. And it's one of my favorite novels, so it's not impossible for me to enjoy the reading experience, but it's my least favorite mode of reading, a mass-market paperback. Not for me. I have 3 to show you, though. One is Welsh writer Emer Humphreys' The Best of Friends. This was a book recommended to me very highly by Charlotte of Tired Mama Tries to Read, and this was the most affordable version that I could get as a second-hand book, so I do look forward to reading that. Emer Humphreys is still alive. He is 100 years old. He turned 100 years old in the middle of April. Leading Welsh novelist, poet, and author. I did try one of his most famous novels a year ago, a toy epic, and I didn't get along with it, bailed. But it was at that point that Charlotte recommended The Best of Friends, so I will give it a try, hopefully next year. Never even took the price tag off. This is the Chinese novelist Ha Jin's In the Pond. I didn't really love this. I'm not sure why I kept it, because it was about a 3 or maybe 4-star read, but it hasn't stuck with me. But that's another mass-market paperback in my collection. And this was a gift from my dear friend Electra, Orhan Pamuk's novel Silent House. I haven't read it. Someday. Number 6, A is for All in the Family. Whether you come from a family of readers or you do not, tell us all about it. So, we wanted the Vlogmas Tag to include a lot of prompts where you didn't have to do any research or even search your library. You could just talk about stuff. So, I came from a family of readers. My mother is and was an avid reader. Both of my grandmothers were. All 4 of my grandparents were. And certain aunts and uncles as well. My dad is not a reader. My sister is not a reader. But the rest of the family, and if you go back into like second cousins and great aunts and uncles and stuff, just a family of big readers. That helped shape me as a reader. I'm adopted, and my birth mother was a voracious reader. So I get the biological predisposition and the environmental encouragement. So I was a precocious reader and was encouraged in that by my family. So I've already talked about gifts from grandparents. I was encouraged in my nerdy goal of creating a lending library in my bedroom when I was, what grade would I have been in? Grades 4 or 5. The teacher arranged a field trip, the entire class. Now, we're talking small town Saskatchewan, so the entire class we're talking about 15 students, but a field trip out to my parents' house, down into my basement bedroom, and all my classmates signed books out, and Mom made cookies or something. So, yeah, I'm lucky to have been encouraged. I mean, there were times, I'm sure I can't remember anything specific, where I was reading too much or, was not doing something that I should have been doing, some chore or something. There must have been some of that, but for the most part, I remember also that the public library in Plenty, Saskatchewan, again, the population of my hometown is 150 people, and there's a lending library. I'm sure I have 3 times as many books in my apartment as that library had, but I would borrow adult-themed books, and I went through a stage of being deeply fascinated by the occult, and I was interlibrary loaning books about witchcraft and stuff, and the librarian was horrified, and I think she actually refused to lend me books, and she phoned my mother, and my mom said, "You just let him read whatever he wants." So, thank you, Mother. All right. And the final one, number 7, S is for Santa. Books on your Christmas wish list. I'm not really celebrating Christmas this year, but in terms of shopping I would like to do for myself, Britta Bowler talked in a recent TBR video about the translation of a German novel. In English, it's called The German House by Annette Hess, translated by Elizabeth Laufer, and that sounds very much like a Sean book, and it's going to be published in a few days. So that's on my Christmas wish list. I am halfway through this fabulous German novel published in the early 1930s by Irmgard Coin, The Artificial Silk Girl, and I'm loving it so much that I want to get many more by Coin. This is the Penguin Modern Classics edition, and another of her novels will be published in this Penguin Modern Classics edition in a couple of weeks, and it's on my Christmas list. It's called, I'm not sure the pronunciation, Gilgi, One of Us. So that's definitely on my list. I am also 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through this fabulous 1936 novel from the UK, Begin Again by Ursula Orange, and I'm loving it so much that there's 2 other ones, I think, maybe more since this was published, but at least 2 others that have been published by the Furrowed Middlebrow imprint of Dean Street Press. Tom Tiddler's Ground, 1941, apparently that's her most well-known one, and Company in the Evening, 1944, but whatever is available I want to read because this novel is fantastic. That is the Vlogmas Tag. If you notice, I don't know if any of you need me to point it out, but each prompt was for each letter of Vlogmas, V-L-O-G, and so on, okay? Wasn't that clever? Britta and I decided to separate the genders, and I'm to tag the women, and she gets to tag the men. So, I have a list of many female booktubers, and if you're not on this list, it's because I got tired of preparing the list. I think there's 20 here. I don't know, I didn't count, but there's a lot. This is an open tag for anybody to do, and again, a reminder, you don't have to be participating in any militant, committed way to Vlogmas to do this tag. So here goes. I am tagging Mel of Mel's Bookland Adventures, Ange of Beyond the Pages, Heidi of My Reading Life, Natalie of My Reading Days, Doris of Oldie Books, Cousin of Always Doing, Jacqueline of 6 Minutes for Me, and now I have to take a breath and a slurp. Sharon Goforth, Kendra Winchester, Karen of Run Right Reads, Heather of Soggy Expat Book Nerd, Tia and All the Books, Rainy Day Reads, Hannah of Hannah's Books, Veronica of V's Reads and Rambles, Windsong Reads, Alba of Seriella, Ulla Goodnesson, Julia of Julia's Book Time, Anna Bailey Karras, Sarah of Hardcover Hearts, Zoe Beck, Kathy of Grim Reads, and everybody else watching this, whatever your gender. Oh, and let's not forget, if I'm doing the ladies, I'm also tagging Too Tight Lautrec. Happy Vlogmas. Thanks for watching.